I pretended to be insane to avoid being conscripted into the Russian army. After spending 2 weeks in the asylum, I'm sure I'd be better off in the army. By TheScandalist. To be honest, at first, I didn't want to post an update. I've had a very hard week, and when I finally got my phone back, just for one day, the first thought was to watch some memes, funny videos, get an update on what's going on in this mad world outside. But I need these updates for two reasons. First, I need to recollect everything that's happened here. I need to lay it all out so that I can take a look at it and know whether it makes any sense or whether I'm going crazy. If any of you are psychologists, I'd enjoy your input. Perhaps you'd see some patterns that could point towards some mental disorder. Honestly, I half expect it to be a relief. If everything is going on only in my head, it's for the best. I realize the irony of me being locked in the asylum and asking for outside help for my mental evaluation. But to all the local nurses and doctors, I am insane by default. Only you know the truth. And the second reason I post this update is if I go missing, like Sasha, then at least someone on the outside will know about it. Vovoda has been sending us to the abandoned wing of the asylum every day now. But after the last incident, when the patients had gotten restless, it seems like she's had an unpleasant talk with the head doctor. So now we spend only a few hours a day there. The scorn on her face says it all. She'd rather have us all relocated there permanently. Every morning I dread waking up in fear of having to go there. I can't forget about it for even a moment. Every time I go to the corridor, I inevitably see that door at the end of it. The keep out signs are scattered around it. Nurses aren't in a rush to remove the reminder that no one should be there. And we all go inside that wing past those signs every day. Arbeit macht frei. We've developed a pattern for clearing out the wing. Instead of doing it chaotically, we go from room to room, from one cabinet to another. That way, we weren't just pointlessly trying to clean it up. We were reconquering that building, piece by piece. Each day, whenever we'd finish, the territory into which we'd expanded was getting bigger, and the wing was becoming more civilized. It was almost inspiring to observe the changes, and I found it to be a great meditation to ease the strain on my mind. I knew that eventually we'd be done with it, so the corridor of the abandoned wing served as a progress bar. Each day, the wall of dust, cobwebs, and rubble was getting pushed further and further away. We were akin to conquistadors who were uncovering the secrets of the dense South American jungles, minus all the slavery and eradication of the local cultures, of course. But, of course, it was always still there, that border between the civilized and the unknown, and to push that line further, we had to venture beyond it, into the dusty halls and abandoned rooms where the walls are covered in mad ramblings and you're not sure what you're seeing and hearing. I swear that the world there seems less colorful, more colorless, I even want to say. Maybe it's because of all the dust, but everything there has this white and gray filter. Since the four of us, me, Anton, Sapog, and Marone, are the most reliable, we were charged by Vovoda herself of unsealing the barricaded rooms. It may be because she doesn't trust the rest of us, locals or locos, with the tools, but I think it's because she knows something. I think she just wants the strongest minds to be at the helm of her mission, for the weaker ones might succumb to the things within. We still hear things like the pitter-patter of bare feet coming from the barricaded room next door to the one you've unsealed, or someone whispering into your ear. We all pretend that we don't hear those things, but from time to time, some of us cry out in shock from seeing or hearing something. We know the reason why, but we always pretend to believe their half-assed explanation. No one wants to be the first to admit that they see and hear ghosts. Not when you're in an asylum. That said, we've found some interesting things as well. Notes of the former patients written on the walls and smaller pieces of paper were one such curiosity. They ranged from cryptic ones, "I am innocent," "brain rattles," to more fun ones, "I love tea with sugar." Sasha found something else while working there, a girlfriend. He was happy beyond belief when he told me about that. Perhaps the happiest person in the entire building. He didn't tell us who it was, prompting Marone to think that she was made up. I thought about that woman with black gums and shuddered. Ugh. The most interesting thing we found, however, was the old documents Marone pulled out of the trash bin in one of the cabinets we've unsealed. All the documents were at least 30 years old, some dated back in the 80s. Back when the USSR was still very much a thing. All of them half burnt, all of them bearing the same stamp in their yellow covers. For your eyes only. Whoever they were meant for did a bad job of disposing of the documents. We expected them to be the patient's files or something else to do with the asylum, but instead, they were something else entirely. Schedules of new arrivals. 3 new patients designated for that wing every week. The strangest thing about them was, all of them were coming from the prison on the other side of town. Sapog was very alarmed by that. He claimed that no matter the prison, they wouldn't be able to provide 3 insane people every week. There are some crazy folks behind bars, sure, but none of them crazy, if you know what I mean. Either some shady things were going on in that prison, or the prisoners they brought here weren't crazy. Besides that, we've found a half-burned page with seismic activity in the area. The bottom of the page was destroyed, so we couldn't know what it was all about, but from what we could see back in the 80s, the small earthquakes were happening locally almost every month. For one of the most seismically stable areas of one of the most seismically stable countries in the world, it was most unusual. Our town is located in the middle of a huge tectonic plate. There shouldn't be any earthquakes there at all. We've decided to quietly throw out the papers. We didn't want anyone to know we found them. Who knew how secret they were and whose eyes they were meant for? On Friday, it was May the 1st, the International Workers' Day. For our post-Soviet country, where the majority of the population had been born in the USSR, it was quite a big celebration. In Russia, we usually celebrate by going to the woods for a picnic with friends and family, where we cook shashliki, pretty much a kebab, only done with marinated pork and beef, which is cooked over an open fire. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that people will be celebrating like that even during the pandemic. But Vovoda decided that we should celebrate it like in the old days, by having a long day of productive work. So she announced that we would be working extra hours until sundown. Of course, we couldn't object. We were no more than slaves to her, after all. So, on that sunny day, we'd spent its entirety inside the abandoned wing. When we emerged from it, we'd cleaned up twice as many rooms as we usually had in the past. I was tired, but I was feeling satisfied with myself. I was hoping that very soon we'd finish with that place, and in cleaning it up, we'd finally purge it of all those ghosts of the past that haunted it. That's when we found out that Sasha was gone. No one had seen where he'd gone. No one had seen him come out of the abandoned wing. He just disappeared. Vovoda was furious to find out that one of her patients was gone. All windows of the asylum had grids on them, so escaping was impossible. But if Sasha wasn't in the habitated area of the asylum, then it meant that he escaped to the depths of the abandoned wing. The sun was already setting, and the wing was getting darker very quickly. So she instructed the rest of the nurses to get the flashlights. One of them was told to put the patients to sleep and guard the doors so that none of us followed after them. She didn't want more than one patient to get lost. We were ordered to go to our rooms and sleep it off. Vovoda personally promised all of us the day of hard work on the next day, in retaliation for Sasha's transgression. But, of course, even before they left for the abandoned wing, most of the patients, including me, carefully started peeking out to see them. Even though they've turned off almost all the lights, I could still see them very clearly. 5 figures in white nurse gowns with flashlights in their hands, standing next to that dark portal of oakwood, which seemed to be even bigger than usual. I have to give Vovoda credit. She was the one at the helm of the procession into the wing. Her pace showed no hesitation, and she urged the rest of the nurses to not lag behind. One after another, the 4 nurses disappeared into the inky depths of the abandoned wing, leaving just one nurse to guard the entrance to the abyss. She seemed lonely, restless, scared. I could tell that she was afraid to even stand next to those doors, and her flashlight wasn't helping her very much. After all, it was just a cone of light. Sure, it banished the dark, but it couldn't illuminate everything. She turned around to glance at us, the cone of her flashlight glancing across our curious faces. Dozens of faces of the mad, peeking at her from behind the barely open doors. I expected her to tell us to go to sleep, to stop unnerving her, but she told us nothing. Even if we were just a bunch of crazies, we were at least keeping her company. For 10 minutes, nothing was going on. It was getting quite boring, but I wanted to see with my own eyes whether they could bring Sasha back. Plus, I had spent there way too much time, at Vovoda's behest, to miss such a show. I wanted to see for myself how would they like it when they were the ones in there. 10 minutes of silence, then a scream. The high-pitched one, the one that before that moment existed only in the 50s horror movies. In reality, without the protective veil of suspension of disbelief, it was much more chilling. The kind of scream that makes your hair stand up, makes you want to crawl under the blankets and pray for the sun to rise soon. The echo that followed only made it much more sinister. They were really deep inside the wing, much deeper than any of us had ever ventured. The nurse at the door started panicking. I saw that she didn't know whether she was supposed to escape or run inside to help. In any case, if there was any tangible threat within the wing, she'd be the first one to fall prey to it. 2 or 3 minutes, we saw the lights. The nurses were coming back. Vovoda was practically pulling one of them. The woman was hysterical, and her words were completely incomprehensible. Whatever she'd seen or heard pushed her to the edge. Get a hold of yourself. You'll alert the patients. And I don't want to calm down these fucks. Go to sleep! She screamed when she saw us peeking, and we all obeyed. I did too, but before confirming with my own eyes that Sasha was not with them. I heard Vavoda chastising the nurse for not keeping us in check, and telling the hysterical one to get a week off. After that, I fell asleep, her cries still echoing in my ears. I woke up to the same cries in the morning. At first, I thought that it was one of the patients, but without a doubt, it was the same voice crying in the corridor outside. The other patients had been woken up by it as well. I could hear them gathering outside, coming out of their rooms and getting agitated. Not to miss out on what was going on, I hurried to the corridor as well. The nurse was sitting on the floor in front of the door to the abandoned wing. The door that unusually was already open. She was gently weeping, and although I couldn't tell what was going on, I could see that she was sitting in the pool of blood, most likely her own. I glanced at the other side of the corridor to see where any of the nurses were, and saw one of them lying on the floor. Later, I found out that she was unconscious, but back then I thought that she was killed. It was quite unnerving to find yourself in the hospital where the only nurse was weeping while sitting in blood. As much as I disliked them, they were the ones who fed us, who brought order to the asylum. I was afraid that we'd die of hunger within those walls, that no one else would come. Little by little, we approached the weeping nurse. As I was getting closer, I saw that she was holding her bloodied hands in front of her, forming a cup out of them. A cup she was seemingly offering to someone. When I came close enough to look at her face, I almost gagged. Her eyes were gone, clawed out of their sockets, and the angle of the scars on her eyelids that were hanging over the gaping dark holes left no place for interpretation. She was the one who had done it. The finishing touch, the one thing that made me run away from her, were the footprints. Huge footprints of bare feet leading to and from her. The footprints of the one who took her bloodied offering away. The footprints so big they could belong only to one person. Sasha. Vavoda came in a half an hour later. Even when she saw all of that, she wasn't shaken. She called the ambulance for both nurses, had them taken away, and that was that. She didn't talk about Sasha and didn't make any more efforts to find him. It was as if he really disappeared. This morning, I saw her walking away with some files in the direction of the trash bins. I don't know for sure, but I suspect it was Sasha's file. Just like that, she erased the proof that he ever was there. If I go missing, she'll do the same to my files too. When Anton asked her if we were going to return to the abandoned wing tomorrow, she chastised him for being lazy and cowardly and assured him that we'd work there as usual. I can hear her coming. Time's up. Just one more thing. Marone thinks that she's making us look for something there. He says he saw something in the old files that could give him a clue as to what it is. But if he saw it, why didn't he show us?